So my name is Caleb Parker, and I recognize a few faces, but for those of you who don't know, I host a TV show called The Future in 15, and we cover innovation within the MICE sector, the meetings and events world. 15-minute interviews with people who are innovating. And I also am the CEO of a new company called Bold, B-O-L-D, and we're a small meetings venue brand that you can book like you book an Uber, and then you tap in and out of the space by the hour, by the day. It's like a Zipcar for small meetings. But I want to turn it over to our panelists, Rich and Jonathan. Gavin. Rich and Gavin. And we have one guy. This is ironic considering the topic. We have one guy who's supposed to be here today. He's international and he's not here. So it's a good topic to talk about, right?
Yeah, right. We should have streamed him in.
Yeah, we should have streamed him in.
We could have had him in.
But let's kick it off, shall we? Introduce yourself, Rich.
Cool. So, hi guys. I'm Rich from firstsight.media. For those of you that don't know us, we predominantly film and webcast live events. We do lots of other stuff as well, but that is kind of why I'm here, I suppose. So that's what we're doing. So you'll see there's a camera guy at the back with a similar shirt on to me. We're filming all the streams throughout the day. They'll all be chucked up on YouTube later. And yeah, we would normally stream those live as well so that people can engage, hence my experience to talk about this today. Gavin.
Morning all, my name is Gavin Newman. I'm a director and co-founder of iVent. We deliver virtual events, so we could recreate this entire event and deliver it online. We're retained by the Department of International Trade, the NHS and the Ministry of Defence for things like careers fairs and virtual trade shows. We're the biggest provider of virtual open days for universities globally, going from Australia to Holland, Paris and to the UK. And we deliver conferences. The last one we did was Nestlé's Global Virtual Conference 2 weeks ago. So big, small, and really any type of event format.
Excellent. Okay. So is anyone not here to talk about creating an international online audience? Good. Okay. And everybody has headphones. That's amazing. This is the first session where everybody wore them. Fantastic. Okay, so I want to kick off with a question for you because I'm a show host of Future in 15, and we have events around our shows, and we primarily have an audience in London, and we're starting to expand up into the Midlands. But we have ambitions to grow that beyond into the EU, into the US. And we've had a few viewers from those areas, but it's primarily here. How can we, as event organizers, engage an online audience? I'm just throw it out there to you. How can we do that?
Well, a very vague question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great start. I mean, the obvious answer I'm going to say is stream it live.
Yep.
Obviously, because that's what we do.
Why live versus recording it and then publishing it later?
We can do either. I mean, I think the key, that's probably a different question about whether you want to engage with the people that are watching. And when you're doing things on demand, it's much more difficult to do that for obvious reasons. You can still do that. Some stuff that we stream on demand, we might have a fix, so it's pre-recorded, but it goes live at this time. And then afterwards, the guy that hosted it might have a bit of a chat with some people, and everyone can either via Twitter or whatever. So you can still do it via on demand, but the live aspect of it helps drive much more engagement. Like the stuff, the apps and stuff that we're using here today. If you want, I think one of the key things is you have to engage with your user. You can't just expect them, I've put it online, so they'll enjoy themselves. It's a very different kettle of fish.
Yeah, if you build it, they will come, not necessarily.
Exactly.
So once you build it, once you put it online, how do you then get people to come and watch it?
Well, you've got to drive it, and this is one of the key things that a lot of offline event organizers forget. When you put it online, you've still got to market it. You've still got to drive that engagement and get people to come and watch it, whether that be live or on demand. You've still got to do a lot of the hard work. Sure, you don't necessarily have to book a massive venue, etc. But there's still a lot of hard work to get that engagement. And there's a lot of platforms, which is going to be a great, if for me to hand over to you now, Gavin. There's a lot of platforms that can help engage with the users online, so they don't just feel like they're sat there on their own in front of their laptop, because they're not going to want to do that for very long. You might get them for 10, 15 minutes, and they're going to start to get bored and lose engagement. Gavin.
Hi. I'd just echo everything you said actually on there. I think the greatest challenge that we face as an organization is to get people engaged in the virtual events. You know, when you guys are sitting here, I mean, this young lady did just often leave down there, but it's quite difficult at a live event just to get up and sort of walk off. You know, most of us are English and we just don't do things like that. Online, you have a mouse. Okay, you have a mouse and it's very easy to click away. I mean, there is one interesting statistic about watching live stream stuff, and that is you've got to try and get the audience to do something every 90 seconds to keep their eyes on. We have some hilarious feedback from clients saying, can you tell if people aren't looking at the screen? Well, I think Stephen Hawking's got a bit of technology that can do that, but no, we can't. So engagement is very, very difficult. So what we've tried to do, we've got a real focus this year and next year on developing our platform to engender that engagement. So it's not just being a keyboard warrior. You know, people say to me, oh, can you really network online using a keyboard? And I said, well, Mark Zuckerberg's done pretty well out of it. So what we're doing is we're creating things like audio rooms, so you can break out and have an audio session like this, one-to-one video and things. And we do careers fairs, etc., and putting people in, you know, first stage interviews in one-to-one videos, so you can actually see people's faces. But it is a massive, massive challenge. And I think what happened is webinars have become things that people go, oh my God, I can't believe I've got to attend one of those, because it's a bit like a boring TV show. Unless you're absolutely captivated by the content, then it is difficult to do. And I think that's the challenge for all of us, is to try and make them more interesting. So the content's got to be very magnetic for you to want to turn up and do that.
So if we go back to the question about live versus publishing it later, it is almost, if you publish it later, like a webinar, and it maybe can come off as being a little bit boring to some people, depending on the content. But if it is live, are you saying that it sort of helps people ease their FOMO, their fear of missing out, because they can actually be there without being there?
Yeah, I think the preferred option at the moment, and there's a number of reasons, is this sort of mixture of putting stuff that's already pre-recorded and then mixing in someone live at the end. What people want to do is they don't necessarily just want to, you know, it's quite obvious when something's pre-recorded and push that live, particularly when you stream the person at the end and they're wearing a completely different outfit than they've pre-recorded in, which happens quite a bit.
They're a celebrity.
Yeah, exactly. But pre-recording stuff means that it's a safe way of actually producing really good content. Live days, you know, people get nervous, sometimes they don't turn up, they're ill, they fluff their lines, the technology isn't really there. So we find that probably 80-90% of people will want to do a pre-record first and then come in live at the end. And the audience do like that live interaction at the end, particularly through voice or video rather than actually through a keyboard. So
remember, we're using Slido. We want your questions because we don't want to just talk to you. We want to talk with you. So send them in. If for some reason you can't, raise your hand. I'll take your question verbally, but send them in through Slido. So I want to sort of go back to just take this event for instance. If right now I'm assuming is anybody here doesn't live in the UK? So we have 99% of the people that are from the UK. You flew over for this event. High five. All right. Where are you from? Germany. Okay, good. So if Event Tech Live wanted to attract a U.S. audience, so you guys and all these guys over here could sell to the U.S. that weren't flying over, how could they do that online at the same time this event's going on?
How do they do it? What do you mean? What, in marketing terms or the technology side of it?
Well, let's start with the tech.
Yeah, I mean, as Rich said earlier, Adam might hate me for saying this, Adam who runs the show here, I've offered to reproduce this show for free as a virtual event. And it just, you know, there's an awful lot to do, and I guess it's time and stuff. So we can recreate this entire experience online for people. So then it does come down to a marketing thing.
So when you say reproduce, do you mean this show, while it's going on, at the same time can be going online in the same format, but online?
And the booths can look identical, and you've got people, you could man this booth at the same time as a virtual one, so people coming in online could be talking to you on your booth. So, we just recreate that entire thing. All the sessions could be in different auditoriums, networking rooms, and all the rest of it. So every single part of what you see happening here today can be reproduced online pretty much identically.
Okay, yes.
How does that work with time differences? So if you're doing it live, then in America and California, it's going to be, 8 hours behind or something. So no one's going to sit there and watch it live because it's going to be 3 a.m.
Good question.
Yeah, that's the one thing we haven't worked out yet, how to time shift. But you're absolutely right. That's a great challenge. And we did Nestlé's event. They sort of started it at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon to try and pull in as many time zones. One of the greatest events I've ever been part of that we did 6 years ago, so pretty much when we started out, was for an engineering company. And they were genius, and they called it Follow the Sunrise. So what happened is as the sun rose in a country, they would be hosting the event, and it would go around the world. So you could participate for as long as you could, but then the whole thing could be replayed on demand. But yeah, it's a challenge. We'll have a word with God about that then.
There is actually a simple way to do it, in that you do multiple things. You do multiple instances of the same thing. So there are instances where we've done, whether that be for someone that's got global offices and the CEO wants to talk to everybody, they might do a sort of 8 a.m. one in the UK that's for, Australia and that side of the world, and then they do one at midday for the UK and Europe, and then one in the evening, maybe 8 p.m. for APAC. And that is a way to do it. You can then still engage with those individually. It means that you can't engage with everybody across the world at the same time. You might be able to. I don't know of a good way to do it without getting people up at stupid o'clock. At least someone's got to be up at stupid o'clock. But does that answer your question a little? Cool.
I wonder if he does anybody watch NFL? Yeah, okay. So NFL has been really making a push to come over to the UK. They used to have NFL Europe, but that didn't work out. But I think NFL is a good example of a live event that is also broadcast to an international audience. And I don't know, maybe we can learn from that. Is that?
I think they've already got, and this is what I mean about you have to market it, right? They've already got an excellent marketing campaign. They spend a couple of quid over it, or a couple of dollars over in the US
$5,
on
I
NFL.
think.
Yeah, maybe up to a $5, yeah. So they've already got a base and a franchise that everybody knows and loves. So as soon as you put it on at a time that I can watch it at a sensible afternoon time, I'm going to do that in the UK. And that's the same with any of your events that you're running. You just need to be careful and clever about what time, who am I mainly trying to hit? For example, if we were trying to here at ETL, if we were trying to hit a US audience, what we might do is have a big speaker on at maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so that we can then pull in, and we might actually carry on the show after that time. So it might be that instead of running from 9:30 till 4:30 or something like that, it would be from maybe 9:30 till 9:30, so that everybody gets an opportunity to do that. And you just need to work a bit harder, think a bit smarter about how you're going to deliver that. If reaching lots of countries or lots of territories across the globe is important, that's what you're going to have to work and think about.
Can you dive into the tech that's needed for that? What do we need? Cameras. Okay. What else?
Yeah, I mean, from a streaming only point of view, before we get into Gavin stuff, yeah, that's it. You need streaming. You need some sort of encoding device or machine, and then you need somewhere to stream it to. So a platform. Now that platform could be something, something elaborate. I'm going to use the phrase for Gavin's platform. It could be something big and something that can do lots of things and be very clever and very smart and engage with the audience really well. It could be as simple as Google Hangouts or YouTube or Facebook Live. So yeah, you need a way to capture the information that you want to stream, whether that just be slides or audio, or I want you to use cameras because then you can use me, of course. But you can.
And lots of bandwidth.
Not necessarily, but yeah, I mean, the more bandwidth, the better. The problem is that BBC iPlayer and ITV Player and 4OD and stuff like that over in the UK means that people are used to consuming HD video, because most of us now watch it. There's that, and the iPlayer they've done it so you automatically watch HD now. You have to turn it off. So people are used to seeing beautiful quality streams, and so if you then go with your webcam and your 56k dial-up connection, you are going to struggle for sure. Yeah. Anything to add? No. Okay.
So, taking it back to this event again, and talking about selling exhibitor space, and this is one of the questions here from the audience. How does it work with selling space to exhibitors if you're offering the same experience online?
Yeah, one of the conversations and challenges that we have from people is they're very resistant to any sort of form of cannibalization. So, if you guys had an opportunity, say when you signed up to come to this event 2 months ago, and said, look, actually, do you want to attend online or do you want to come in person? If people have never done a virtual event before probably go, I'll probably go to the live one. But people who have participated and see how effective a virtual event can be, they may well choose to do that. So, because it's a free event to attend, right? If there's a free event to attend, it doesn't matter whether your audience are online or whether they actually turn up in person. It only matters if you're monetizing the actual live show, and that can present big challenges. So we're running 2 huge exhibitions and trade shows, conferences in February and March, one in the UK, one in the US for the same people, and it's monetized, but they're not releasing the fact there's going to be a virtual version until the live event has finished. But the question I asked these people when he came, I said, how many people registered for the event? He goes, last year 14,000. I said, how many turned up? And he went 3.5. And I said, so there's, if my maths is right, something like 10,500 people who had an appetite to attend that event who didn't turn up. They don't fill in registration forms for the hell of it. They want to go. They don't turn up for budget or scheduling reasons, which is why the idea of not converting something completely to virtual, but having a supplementary version, even if it's what we call an echo event. So the live one happens, and then an echo version of it happens, and it can all feel as if it's live as well afterwards.
I think appetite is a key word there, actually. And I think if you've got an appetite for an event of this scale, that a lot of people are that can't turn up. They can't come from North Yorkshire down to London. They're going to do it. And what's important is that you drive both, and so people have a reason to come on the day. And so you can. Was it about exhibition space and selling exhibition space? So you still get the footfall here, and you're still able to sell your exhibition space. But so there's a USP, right? So you've got a USP to coming here and attending this event. But there might also be a different USP that attracts a different audience. So, it's about the appetite for what you're trying to achieve.
Can you give an example of that maybe you've seen in the past? Okay,
well, so we did an event that had a small capacity. So it only had 700. They could only get 750 people in it. Excuse me, and that was actually a free event, so maybe it's a bad example, but I'll run with it anyway. So they had 750 people in the theatre watching the session. They then had 2.6 million people watching it online.
Massive branding.
Yeah, so it was 800,000 live, and then the rest of it over the space of 11 days, I think it was. So that's where there's a USP, because it's what's being said on stage that's interesting, right? That's what people are interested in listening to, and so it doesn't matter whether you put it offline and sell tickets, or you put it online and don't sell tickets and still sell tickets, or whatever. People want to engage with it. Granted, it was free, so lots of people were able to.
Coming back to that question about selling exhibitor space, if you say to an exhibitor, look, you can have a day here and it's going to cost X, but just for a few quid more, you can have double, triple, quadruple the amount of people visiting your booth, and in fact for 30 days afterwards. So all of a sudden it's like, well, it's a bit of a no-brainer in selling it. So because you're not cannibalizing it, you're actually extending your audience reach. That's where virtual then comes into its own.
So I want to talk a little bit more about tactics around being able to facilitate an international audience, and then when I want to move into attracting that international audience, more the marketing side and strategy around that. But first of all, one of the questions is, what do companies tend to charge as the attendee fee for the virtual version to see it online? Is it free? Is there a charge? What are you seeing?
Yeah, most online things are still, as you'll know, sort of webinars and webcasts in its sort of simple form are pretty much sponsor driven, so that they're free to attendees, because what they're still trying to do is drive trial of these things. So you've got to get the audience in, because that's what sponsors want, is the data from that. So they're very much sponsor driven. If they are monetized, you've got to see it it's a no-brainer type of fee. So I've seen events charged that might be £500 or £600 to attend live, but there might even be as low as $49 to attend online. So you've got to make it massively attractive. I think the most expensive one online I've seen is only about $150. so far. But maybe that'll change. I think it's because if you've got the option of the live and the virtual, but if it's virtual only, then I think then you could probably push fees up.
I think it really depends on what you're streaming and what you're doing. Like, okay, so what's the majority of people in here? Do we organise conferences? Do we organise exhibitions like here? Hand up if you're conferences. Okay, and then exhibitions like this. Okay, so conferences, presumably at the conferences that you're doing, you've got some key speakers, right? Some either panel discussions with awesome people like we've got here right now, or something like that, right? So you've got engagement, and so are you predominantly charging for people to attend that conference? Hands up if you're charging. Right. Okay. So it's simple then. You charge less than you're charging offline, because people won't pay as much as they will to come and see it as they will to watch it online. We do a lot of stuff for the British Equine Veterinary Association. Okay, we do their annual, they call it Congress, and they have 3 days. I think we film 60 rooms. I'm looking at Dan to nod for me. It's something like 60 rooms, 3-hour sessions. Okay, if you attend that conference, there are 6 rooms going on all at once, so you can't be in all 6 of them. You can only be in one at a time. So if you attend the conference, I think it's about $2,000 to attend. It might be less. I don't know. I don't get involved in that kind of thing. But you can then watch for 30 days. You can watch all the on-demand content for free. So wow. So not only do I get my CPD points for the one session that I watched, but I could actually get my CPD points for the other 4. It's awesome. They then have, I think, to watch everything after the 30 days, it's a they've membership, so it's a heavily discounted rate for their membership. I think it's 50%, and then it's about $1,000 to watch the whole lot online afterwards. So yeah, you can charge, and they get loads of uses. They have about 3,000 active users on the webinar platform that we've built for them. They have about 3,000 active users a month. So they don't necessarily cover the cost of us going and filming it all, but it's a great added value to their members and stuff like that. There's also, I would also advise putting some stuff up for free, right? Because you need to create. It's like a readership or it's a viewership. You need to start creating that, and you can't do that if you're putting paywalls behind everything. So maybe if you've got 10 sessions up, maybe make one of them or 2 of them free. Advertise that on social media, push it out there, then they're going to watch that and they're going to go, you know what, this content is awesome, I can really engage with this. I can then start thinking about, people might go, oh, I've watched that, that's great. Oh, I might actually pay for this one because I want to hear about that. Does that make sense? Yeah, cool.
It does, and I want to jump into these 2 questions here in regards to multi-language audience. If we're talking about we want to reach the Asian market, how do we address the language? Is translation available?
Yep, absolutely. So you can stream multiple languages at once, and essentially the user, you can do it so that I'm not sure how Gavin's system works, but some systems are able to detect where they are based on their IP address, and it will give them the appropriate language, or they can select it. Even streaming through YouTube, you can do that. I say even YouTube, not that I'm poo-pooing YouTube streaming, but even YouTube does that. You can stream multiple languages. So if you've got a translator in your offline event anyway, you might as well push that out. It's not going to cost much different.
So, did you want to say anything?
We a good example. We did AstraZeneca's event in 2012, and it's the same. They had somebody translating. It just picked up both streams. You could choose which one you wanted to watch. So it's much better. The trouble with captioning and all the rest of it is, you can get it's not as accurate as you think it might be. Which way is your grandmother to the beach? And you go, what on earth are they trying to say? So, those aren't the best. It's always better to have a translator streaming live and covering over the top of it. Yeah.
Maybe translating for the people up north?
The people up north, that's it.
Just kidding. It took me forever to understand certain accents when I moved over here.
I live up in North Yorkshire.
Now
I'm obviously not from there.
I can now pick it out and say, oh, I know where you're from. Okay, so moving into reaching that audience. So we're all set up. We're using the platforms. We've got live streaming, and now we want to market it. We want to attract that international audience. You mentioned YouTube earlier. Should we be using YouTube? Should we be using Facebook? What platform should we be using? How do we? And the list goes on.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it depends what you're trying to do, and I know that's a really opt-out answer. I'm really sorry, but it depends who you're trying to use and what you're trying to do. I know that there are parts of Germany that block YouTube. There are parts of Asia that block YouTube as well. YouTube Live, I think. I think you'll find if any of you done any research whatsoever into streaming online, you will find there is bajillions of platforms out there, and literally loads and loads, and they all promise to be doing different things. And again, this is where I mentioned about you guys being smart about what you're trying to achieve. Think about Simon Sinek's The Why. Think about the why. And okay, well, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get my conference out there to as many people as is humanly possible. Well, YouTube, Facebook Live, Google Hangouts, Twitter, all four of those are a great way to do that. Engage as much as you can. Bang on about it on social media. You will get a viewership by doing that. If you want to sort of lock it down, if you want to put a paywall in front of it, those aren't good answers. Those aren't good options at all. So it all really depends on what you're trying to achieve. I can't turn around without being an owl. I can't see exactly what the question was and whether I can answer that, but hopefully that gives you an idea.
Yeah, and I think we want to get that international audience to see our content. We're going to put it onto the platform, but then should we be marketing it? Should we? I guess it does depend on what type of organization you are, but what are you seeing in terms of marketing and trying to get that content out?
Like I said, I think one of the first things I said was if you don't market it, they won't come.
Yeah.
So yeah, you need to market it, especially if you're going to do it live, because what we often find is, so we'll come and we'll stream your event and it'll be beautiful and we'll do it in HD and it will be great, but if you've not encouraged anybody to watch it, no one's going to be there, and they're going to go, well, this web stream was a failure because nobody watched it. Well, that's not the reason why. It's not the technology. It's because you didn't drive it. So I'm going to go back to this cannibalization thing. I did an event tech talk earlier in the year at a similar panel, and one of the first questions was, well, won't it cannibalize my offline audience? Well, it doesn't have to. If you're careful about how you continue to have a USP for your offline event, you have a USP for your online event, and you market those two USPs either independently or together, depending on what you're doing. Like the BVA, the British Veterinary Association example I gave you, they do them simultaneously. If you can't make it to Liverpool where it was this year, don't worry. We'll put it up online and you can watch it, you can pay to watch it. So I've trailed off the question again.
It's all right. It's all right.
But I like to talk about making sure that you guys work hard so that when we stream it, we all look good.
There's loads of questions up here now, and we're going to jump around a little bit. But I also wanted to remind you that we do have a mic here floating around if you want to stand up and ask a question, introduce yourself. I think this is a good question. It's been upvoted 5 times. So if your content is confidential, how do you manage it? How do you manage that risk?
Yeah, so you put a wall in front of it. So it doesn't have to be a paywall necessarily, but you encourage. So we do something that is a very basic version of what Gavin does, which is what we call a microsite. So it's a little website. Users have to register to access the content, and it might be that they register, then they pay. Or they register, then you pre-qualify them. So you get an email that says this person has registered. Can you authorize them for access? So if they're your biggest competitor, you go, no bleeding way, I'm not going to do that. But if they're a legitimate person, you say yes, they then get access. That is the best way to protect your content. Put it behind, because people won't sign up for stuff if they know they're not supposed to be there. Well, they shouldn't. They don't generally, in my experience.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and then you can go to more sophisticated measures. So we work with KPMG. We built their Brexit portal for all their global events, and it's only people with KPMG email addresses can get in, or lockdown domains and all the rest of it. But somebody said to me, "Oh, what happens if they got my login details?" And I say, "Well, if I give you my bank details to log into, you can take all £6.80 in my account. If you start sharing that, so it's definitely just put it behind a login, and there's, it'll be confidential in there. And if it is confidential, you wouldn't want to put it online anyway.
So we have time for one final question, and we're going to use the second one here, which is the most upvotes too. Awesome. What is the best way to interact with a virtual audience? It's probably for you, Gavin.
Yeah. There are multiple ways to interact. I think I come back to making sure that you are getting them to physically do something. You know what? It's if you watch a movie, you're happy to sit in a chair and eat the popcorn for 2 hours. For some reason, people find it difficult 2 minutes into a webinar to stop sitting still. So why is a great movie, you can sit and watch it for 2 hours, but a webinar you can't get more than 2 minutes in? And it just comes down to how good it is. I know that sounds like a really simple answer. If it's really, really, like TED Talks, who watches TED Talks? Hands up. Right, you can watch those and you don't even know you've watched it because it's so amazingly engaging. You get to the end and go, wow, that was, the Book of Why. That's a great example. Watch this guy speak and you just don't know you're watching it. If you've got people falling asleep after 2 minutes, and our system will show you as they start peeling off and leaving and clicking out. So engaging is getting them, first of all, it's got to be amazing, magnetic content, really interesting. But secondly, get them to do something. Because there was another question up there about how do you sort of recreate the feeling of a live event. Well, if you're actually see who else is in the room. There's a lot of webinars where you just get the stream. You can't actually see who else is in there. So you're not aware. So there's absolutely no sort of social energy that's being generated from that. So we try and make sure that you can see who's in there. You can actually go and talk to them while it's going on, etc. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would just add to that really quickly. Get them to do stuff. Get your online audience to do things, whether that be to ask a question, whether that be some polls, so this is what we think, what do you guys think? Just get them to engage with what you're doing, whether that just be by firing in questions. A lot of events that we do tend to leave the question and answer to the end. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Put it in the middle and put it at the end. Because otherwise, people are going to be asking questions and they're going to be thinking, well, they're not even looking at my question. I'm not going to bother with this. And then they'll go. So engage with them. And help them engage with you guys as well and your content.
So we've run out of time. Want to thank our great panelists here. Round of applause. Thank you. I think the technology is there to attract the international audience. You have to have really good content and you have to market it. So thank you for coming. The next session will be in less than 10 minutes on event marketing, how to boost outreach and clout online to maximize registration. Thank you.